My work with relationship contracts began when I understood that every relationship had a relationship contract. The only question is whether or not it is conscious and whether or not it is optimal. Now, within 3 dates in a romantic relationship, there is a pattern. And that pattern is part of the contract. There is a pattern of verbal articulation. It's a contract. It says how much someone will or will not be interrupted. It says which topics will be resisted and which topics will be open to. It says the pace at which something will be done and who will do the compromising in that pace. Will the faster person slow down? Will the slower person speed up? Or will they meet in the middle? A pattern that is agreed upon by both causing and allowing is a de facto contract. If you come up to me and slap me in the face, and I look small and helpless and turn away and feel like a bad person, we've just signed a contract. And the contract says that when you're feeling helpless and small, you can feel big by giving that feeling to me, and I will accept that feeling for you so that you feel better. And I will then feel small, and you can feel big again. And the contract is signed when you slap me and I feel small. You slap me again and I feel small. You slap me again and I feel small. We now have an abuse transference contract. And that contract will continue at some level until a force equal or greater than the inertia that's creating that particular abuse pattern or contract and stops it. For example, if I'm a 5-year-old little boy and I happen to have a healthy adult in the vicinity who, when a parent starts to hit me like that and make me feel the parent's smallness, then the pattern may shift. If there's a healthy adult that comes across and says, hey, you don't get to hit this 5-year-old this way. I'm calling the police, I'm calling protective services, you don't get to hit this child this way. Well, the parent may search around for another contract that will achieve the same goal. Okay, I don't get to hit you and make you feel small. I know I will punish you by taking away what you love most in the world, which they can't take. I can't be hauled off to protective services for withdrawing your friends, withdrawing your movies, and just telling you to do your worst subject in school over and over again. I've outwitted the cultural sanctioning system, but I'm still going to make you feel small one way or another, because that's what I want to do. And again, if there is a healthy adult around there, the child may or may not be stuck up for, and say no. Stop being such an abusive person, and also tell the child, this is not your fault. This smallness has nothing to do with you. You're in the care of a very small grown-up, and give them back, their smallness. They're petty, they're small, they're a bully. This isn't on you. well, that may break the contract. Maybe the little one no longer looks to that caregiver and says, whatever I have to take, I'm going to accept it, but instead turns over here and says, thank you. We have a contract that says you stick up for me and I say thank you. Because that's what our relationship is. And so every relationship has patterns. And for a pattern to exist at some level, there is an initiation and there is an agreement. Every pattern has someone saying, how about it? And another person saying yes, by causing or allowing. And the degree of violation involved, in part, has to do with scale. Meaning if you have a giant that's 5 times bigger than a small infant and the giant makes it happen, then the contract is one of defeat and submission and violation on the part of the child. The contract is one of violation and abuse and domination as part of the grown-up. When you have, 2 independent grown-ups that do not need each other financially, psychologically, for survival, security, for love and belonging, who freely come together, then it is much more of a free contract, and you tend to have a healthier probability field. But the contract is the pattern of creating and allowing. There's a feminine and a masculine expression. The masculine is to create. The feminine is to allow. When you have a pattern where some person is saying, how about it, and the other person is saying yes, you have a synergy. That is a pattern of interaction. And you have a contract, an agreement. I call up and talk like this, and you pick up and answer like this. And in the process, I start feeling this, and you start feeling this, and this does happen, and this doesn't happen, etc., etc. Every relationship has a contract if it's of a repetitive and significant nature. The contract determines not whether energy will be exchanged. Energy will be exchanged, positive and negative, masculine and feminine. Energy will be exchanged in a relationship. The contract determines the pattern of that exchange, or the recipe of that exchange. Is that a recipe of me saying, come on, let's have sex, and you saying no, and me saying, come on, I'm not, I'm going to kill myself if I don't do that, you're saying, well, I don't really want to, and it's like, well, let's get it over with then, because I'm just going to keep nagging you until you agree, and you say, okay, fine, let's get it over with then, because I don't want to be nagged, and I don't want to stand up for myself and just say, fuck off. And besides, I like being pursued. It gives me a little vanity and stuff, and and all this, and all that pits together, and all those different parts say, okay, now we have a pattern. I nag and pursue you when my other girlfriends are busy, and you capitulate, and I get what I want, and then I pretend it never happened because I don't like remembering that I'm a bully. And then you agree to pretend like you're a nobody in my life because you just want me to go away, and then So that's our little pattern. That's our contract. So it's a recipe for exchanging energy. And a pattern has to be created and allowed. It doesn't have to be conscious. It can be an insane pattern. An insane pattern is saying, I really hate it when you come and visit me, but you send cards out regularly inviting the person over, You always let them in when they knock. You cancel other appointments so that you can spend more time hating the visit. And so you have an insane, it's an insane contract where you say you really hate it, but you go out of your way in every way imaginable in order to make sure that it endures. And so it's like, I see. So we've got a mislabeled contract here. We have a I like to be abused contract and go out of my way to be abused. And then we have it labeled, I hate abuse. Why don't you go away? Because the label makes me feel better about the contract. Because maybe I'm terrified of loneliness, and if the abuse goes away, who's going to notice? Who's going to listen to my screams? And I don't really know how to be joyful. No one ever taught me that in childhood, how to be joyful, and I am miserable, and so what to do there. So this is a contract, and one of the more important things to understand is that most unconscious contracts are suboptimal because they're just inherited structures from a family system. Now, having decided and understood that every relationship had a contract, that most of them were unconscious, and that most of them were abusive in some way, and that all of them were suboptimal, then the problem is not to get rid of a contract. The question becomes, and my evolution with contracts becomes, what is the contract? Meaning, if a stooped, smelly, I'm using our cultural denigrations, so in our culture, old is less than young, and another race is less than our Caucasian race, and stooped is less than thing, and dirty is less than clean. So in our cult, we rank all of these things, and typically behave quite despicably towards that which we have labeled all of our shame and judgment on. But anyway, so a stooped old hag of a different race who's smelly and poor. That's a terrible thing in a capitalist culture. I mean, it's like the crime of the century to be poor. So they're poor, and let's make them a woman. We're starting to hate men more than women, but for most of our cult, we've hated women more than men, and so we've got this who knows nobody, right, and who's a foreigner, just complete garbage, right? So there's our candidate, and if you have a relationship with this individual, there will be a contract with this individual. And the question is, do you want to contract with that woman? This is a bizarre and an absurd question. The question is, what contract can you have? For example, what if you had a contract of insight with this person? What if this, person who's at the bottom of the cultural ranking system happens to be profoundly insightful? Well, do you want to be so dumb that your cultural stereotypes preclude the idea of any value whatsoever with this individual? Because that's typically how we turn human beings into garbage in our culture. Is we create a ranking system around color, around height, around talents, around money, around popularity. We have a ranking system in all these different cult things. Bigger is better, and all this. And then all the measurements, of course, as well, and age, and the right religion, the car, the whole thing. So you've got this person who, having thoroughly ranked human beings in value hierarchies, is at the bottom of your value hierarchy. And the question is, do you want a relationship with them? And this is not the question. That's the insight. The question is, can you create a contract with this person that is mutually valuable, that creates more value than its cost? Now, some of that is lifting off the stupidity. You may want to sit 5 feet away from someone who is reeking of months of foul odors. But, let's assume that this, quote, horrible person has the key to a locker. Like, they're poor, but they have a key to a locker that you could go to and be rich. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Now, you can climb your hierarchy of your cult and be more important person. So this unimportant person can help you become a very important person. In the self-centered sociopathic paradigm of our culture, we create the concept of usury. Okay, I'll pretend to like them just as long as I can use them for this one thing, because they have no value other than this one little thing. And then you use them, and then you discover they have another value, but you already used them and didn't keep your side of the bargain, and it's difficult. Maybe you could come up with an even better lie or agree to make payment in advance so you can use them again. And so the point of this second insight is that every single human being on the planet has the potential to co-create value with, the potential. And so the real question, if someone's wanting to connect, is not if, but how. And so a way to phrase it is this. I don't care what age you are. I don't care anything about you. If you want to help old elderly people cross the street safely, and you don't do any, and that's your contract of relating, that you come into here and help old people cross the street safely, great. You might pick someone else if there are multiple people wanting to do that. But if it's a zero-sum game and it's either, unsafe this or you help with that, it's okay, come on in. If you want to give me $1 million, go ahead. If you want to share an insight that's going to change my life. And so you start thinking of all the favorable ways that someone could enter our lives. And realize that it's not the person that matters, it is the contract that matters. And so, of course, in the initial stages of traumatized reptilian self-absorption, the reptilian brain is completely self-absorbed because it's about meeting needs for survival in a sociopathic environment. Human beings do not occupy the reptilian brainstem unless they experience repeated trauma without repair, i.e. the definition of a sociopathic culture. If you're in an environment in which you can be repeatedly harmed without repair, and then everyone pretends that that's fine, that's the definition of a sociopathic culture. If they will look the other way, if they will say, there, just, don't tell me about that, I don't want to deal with it, I don't want to have a fight with your parents. So then you have that experience from the reptilian's brain's perspective that you're surrounded by sociopathic people who don't have your best interest at heart. And so we need to be in a reptilian brainstem. People in a self-centered reptilian brainstem are looking to use other people, exploit criminality, whatever it is. The other person's win is not important. But in a healthy, conscious, free contract, win-win is inseparable from the relationship, meaning every relationship that is healthy and conscious must be a win-win contract, because a healthy, conscious person will not agree to a win-lose contract. If you go up to someone, hi, nice to meet you, I'd like to formalize an agreement with you. And in this agreement, I'm going to be nice to you for a week. And then I'm busy creating a series of accidents, and so I'm going to, I'm going to be nice to you for a week, and then for the next 10 years, I'm going to have a series of miserable events that make sure that I'm always borrowing and never paying back money, and And our whole contract will be that I will guilt trip you out of your own fear of your dark shadow and your potential, that I will guilt trip you into doing, spending endless amounts of money on this and that and the other. And so if I'm not going to say, yes, I'll happily agree to make the next 10 years of my life miserable. I'm not going to agree to it. But I'm going to agree to it unconsciously by allowing, by feeling obligated by doing this. I'm going to agree to it by allowing. And so we want to get the contract conscious. And then we want to have it be as valuable as possible for both people. Because conscious, healthy people don't need to choose between horribly valuable and valuable. They'll just pick another contract with someone else. And so what made a contract conscious and thus optimal was, one, having the contract written down. Two, exploring all the different possibilities of the contract to really look at our options. And then three, creating a Venn diagram type phenomena where what you like and what I like and what is logistically possible all overlap here, so let's do this. And let's design our relationship. Since I hate football and you want to drag someone to every football game, you get a friend to drag to a football game. I'm never going to go to football. Instead, I'm going to do this other thing that I like. And so you create this relationship contract based on a conscious sense of win-win. If you do that process well, the odds of the relationship being phenomenal go up 80%. So 80%. So why isn't everyone doing this? There's power in this process. There's a tremendous power, and with that responsibility. There's newness in this process, which means you have to break with the unknown, or enter the unknown. And then there's the fact that you can't blame your date if it doesn't go well, and you may discover your cross-wiring, because if you say, pick me up exactly at 8 and take me to a fancy restaurant and and you're not on time yourself, and you don't have the clothes for a fancy restaurant, and you don't have the money for a fancy restaurant, so you've described a contract that you don't actually like. which means there's a kind of dishonesty, which means you're lying for somebody else, which means you're still dealing with another contract. You can't be honest with this contract because your contract with the other person is that every time you tell the truth, they punish you, so you've stopped telling the truth. And so now you're lying, but if the brain has integrity, and so if you're lying over here, if you tell a computer that 2 plus 6 equals 7, you've told the computer that 2 plus 6 equals 7, but it's a wrong formula. But a computer doesn't take the formula over here and then not apply it over here. So if it's a wrong formula, it's a global infection. You've now got a faulty definition in the entire computer system of human consciousness. So you're offering the same delusions in this part of your life as you are in this part of your life. So it does a couple of things to focus on the contract. It determines people who are willing to be real, willing to take risks, know themselves, and want power, the power to create a positive life and be responsible for it. So this is an incredible kind of tool to amplify the potency, the value of the relationship. Now, I will say this plainly. I would rather have a conscious contract with a kind and intelligent bum than an abusive contract with a billionaire. I mean, many, many people have abusive contracts with billionaires. I'll leave the whole job description, the whole thing. It's a horrible contract. I will make my body worse and worse doing something that I hate in order for you will give me bits of paper. It's a terrible contract. Keep your fucking paper. I will create a lifestyle in one way or another that's beautiful. And there's so many ways to create a beautiful life. I think of someone deciding to give away flowers every day and just camp under the trees in a garbage tent or whatever, garbage bags, and then have a life of giving. Why not? If that's a life that you love and that reflects your values and you're not a materialist, why not? Why not a life of giving flowers? Or singing, just creating a music place in the forest or in the meadow, etc. I will sing here. And anyone who loves music and song will eventually migrate in this direction when they want beauty and music. And so what a crappy contract. And see, that's the thing in a culture. The whole thing is they don't want you to become conscious of the cult contract. We're going to ship you off to schools where you're going to learn very slowly how to copy people, and a lot of subjects you will never use in your entire life. Meanwhile, though, we will be separating from life to prepare you for it. Because here you are in life, in mixed racial groups and mixed age groups, doing useful things every day, filling the gas tank, building a house. You're doing useful things. And a child is taken out of life and put into all segregated by age, everyone looking in one direction, everyone copying a teacher for the same subjects that have very little to do with a child's future, but are consuming a lot of their attention. So this is an interesting, just awareness of how every cult has an unconscious contract with their cult participants. They have an unconscious contract, and if it was made conscious, I'm going to ruin your life here, I'm going to do this, you wouldn't sign the contract. And so that's the key thing. So my goal then is to find anyone of any gender who wants to create a conscious win-win contract with integrity. I mean, obviously, you don't want them to sign the contract and then what the secret contract is that I'm going to betray my contract and thus make you feel worthless and humiliated. Because if I betray the contract, then you'll get the message that you're not valuable. So I'll sign the contract, and then I'll just do the exact opposite and pretend I'm too busy to hear your feelings. And so, this then moved into contract mapping. And the best contracts have a genuine intent for win-win that comes with the integrity of the human being, and have a certain amount of time. Time is spelled out, and it's clearly defined, and it really is a step forward for both people. That it's an intelligent choice for both people, and that tremendous value emerges out of that. This is an incredible contract. The contract, to be conscious, and I particularly recommend this for a marriage contract, meaning make your contract a free, openly discussed choice. So what's the contract around money in marriage? And what's the underlying meaning of that as well? In a culture where if you have more money, you're a more valuable person, and if you give someone money, your value goes down and their value goes up, and so it's it makes a big difference what the contract is of what things mean. So you have then the money contract, what, why, and how the money will be exchanged in the relationship. You have the activity contract, what I will do and what you will do, both of the fun stuff and the chores. You may not want to mow the lawn, but if the fantasy is one of we have a nice mowed lawn, then who is paying for that or doing that? And it's just different forms of energy. Are you going to be doing that, or am I going to be doing that? And what's the underlying basis of that? And so you can develop a clear contract with a goal of ending the dialogue with a contract that creates significant value that is not accessible without the contract. And so this then led me to understand that about 98% of people would rather be unconscious than develop a culture like this. And so that becomes a very powerful filter that eliminates 98% of people who, are not wanting to think as much, who are not wanting to work as much, who are not wanting to be responsible as much. Well, that's not the best characteristic for a relationship. You want someone who's conscious and, willing to go for it beyond the cult boundaries, and is loves themselves enough to be true to their inner integrity. These types of, you want to be in a relationship with someone like that. And so the dance, became for me then how conscious can I find a person willing to be? What has to what has to happen in order for me to be in that relationship, and for them to be, it was this compromise. I always wanted to do more intricate processes of more consciousness. Everyone else, the whole idea of having a conscious relationship, just didn't seem to have occurred to them. Seemed a bit strange. Why are you a guy talking about this? So the romantic relationships that I've taken seriously have been with women who said yes to the idea of consciousness, and it's just it's a really beautiful, it's a really beautiful process. It's a really beautiful process and result to come to the end of a negotiation and see exactly what you want and why, and exactly what I want and why, and to form a contract, based on that, or which can include like, gee, we're not quite suited for each other. But it's a very honoring and rich and enriching process that basically stops you from just repeating what your parents did. And so that's pretty much where I stay. I find people that I can create incredible, conscious, beautiful contracts with, and then whoever those people end up being, old or young, whatever, those are the people that are close to me.